Hi everyone, I hope that you are having a good day. I'm Jennifer from Auburn Yoga and Pilates. Tonight we are going to do some yin and restorative yoga. I hope that you'll join me either now or later. If you're going to join us, please grab some props, something you can use in lieu of blocks, and maybe a pillow and a belt. Okay, great. Let's get started. So starting off in a comfortable seated position, you may want to sit on something that's going to lift your hips. It will most likely make your seat a little bit more comfortable, helping you to be able to fully extend your spine. So nice long spine lifting up through the crown of the head. Allowing those shoulders to relax away from the ears. And sometimes you can do that by just taking a simple exhale. If you lift the shoulders a little bit and kind of exhale, sigh it out, they end up dropping down and you can relax that area in your neck and your shoulders. And then just resting your hands somewhere comfortably on your legs. It doesn't much matter where. And now bringing your attention back into your breath. A big inhale through your nose. And exhale out your mouth. And again, inhale through your nose. Exhale out your mouth. And one more time. Inhale through your nose. Exhale out your mouth. Now, if you can, try to keep that same depth of breath, but change it to a completely nostril breath. In through the nose, out through the nose. Trying to create a breath that's deep and fluid. You really want that inhale and that exhale to flow. And then try to think about something that you would like to manifest into your day. What would you like to manifest into your day today? What do you need? And don't worry about it being silly or frivolous. Maybe it's ice cream. Maybe you need ice cream today. Maybe you feel like a cone of ice cream would really lift your day. Or maybe you need more patience. Or maybe more motivation. So sort of see what comes in and seems to fit best. And then bring your attention to what that would look like. So if you really did decide on the cone of ice cream, put yourself in a situation where you're enjoying it. Where are you? Did you make one at home? Did you go to the ice cream shop? Did you have a cup? Did you have a cone? What flavor did you choose? Does it have sprinkles? So making it as realistic as you can. And making your surroundings as realistic as you can, whether it be that you're in your kitchen or you're at a picnic table at one of your favorite ice cream shops. or whatever the situation that you'd like to manifest is. And then once you've got the picture created, add some more senses. What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you smell? And then just sitting in this space for about 2 minutes. And then deepening your breath, bringing yourself back into the room. Consider switching the cross of your legs, just to sort of balance yourself out, and then beginning to circle your spine. Exaggerating your circle, and exaggerating the flexion and extension of the spine that happens within the circle. And reverse direction when you feel ready. And then holding that spine nice and long in the center, as vertical as you can, pulling the heads of the shoulders back slightly, really trying to place your crown directly over your tail. And then taking that right arm, reaching it up for a lateral stretch, and switch sides. And keep going from side to side with your breath. So you can move more quickly than I'm moving, or not quite as quickly as I'm moving. Entirely up to you. You want to try to find a stretch through the side body. Creating as much length as you can in that lifted arm. And bringing that arm up by your ear. last one. And then before we get started with those hand and restorative poses, we'll just do a couple of kneeling cat and cows. So lining up your wrist creases so that they are parallel to the short end of the mat. Those big toes point straight back, and then spill your pelvis forward, press those shoulder blades forward, and then reverse the curve of the spine. Last one, maintaining a neutral spine. Now, you can always use blocks if you need more space to step a foot forward. And then curl the back toes under, take that opposite leg, stepping it forward into a forward fold. Heart forward, head forward, fold forward. Inhale, reach those arms nice and high. Drop those arms down by your side, standing in a mountain pose. So root down through your feet, lift up through the crown of your head, and just take a couple of breaths here, kind of just observing how you feel. Pull the heads of the shoulders back, open the chest. Try to make the weight between both feet, both legs, approximately evenly distributed. And then inhale, sweeping those arms up, nice and high, and then exhaling down into a forward fold. And we're going to hold that forward fold for a little while here. Now, for some of you, this may not be comfortable. If at any point you feel like you're getting any sort of a head rush, obviously you want to take your head up a little higher, maybe even a little higher than this. You want to find that place that works for you. Some of you, however, may feel comfortable hanging in a ragdoll pose. So your hand rests on your opposite forearm, and you allow yourself to hinge forward at the hip and lengthen, that's fine. Whatever form of forward fold that you choose, just hanging out there for a little while. So hopefully feeling a stretch behind those legs and in the back of that torso. And at some point, you may decide that you can go more deeply into the pose, or maybe you need to ease out of it a bit. And then slowly taking those hands either on top of your blocks if they're not already there, or up your shins so that you can lengthen your spine. And then fold forward, inhale, sweep those arms up, and exhale those arms down once again, standing back in that mountain pose, growing those roots. So from here, we're going to go into a variation of malasana, a very low squat. Now, if you have existing knee issues, you're going to want to modify this one. You can do a higher squat against the wall, or you could just choose a totally different alternate pose. Now, the modification is to put your heels on something elevated, like a folded towel or blanket or a rolled up mat. Ideally, you would not use the prop, but sometimes, you know, that just isn't a possibility. I know that for myself, it's not comfortable if I'm not using the prop. I'm, you know, focused on discomfort rather than enjoyment in the pose. Now, sometimes we keep our feet parallel to each other. You can certainly do that. You can keep your knees and your toes pointing forward, or you could, in this variation of it again, because it is a variation, slightly externally rotate your legs from your hips so that your knees kind of follow the track of your big toe. Now from here, you can modify. You could come down just into a squat, or you could drop down a little bit lower here. Now, I'm most likely going to stay here. Some people in this pose will take their hands to the floor and start to walk their fingertips forward to sort of exaggerate that stretch through the back body a little bit more. And so there are many benefits in this pose. The deep flexion is actually, for a healthy knee, supposed to be beneficial for your knees, stimulate circulation, flexibility. It's supposed to be good for cramping and digestion. So we won't stay here, you know, quite as long as we stay in some of the other yin and restorative poses that we do. If it becomes painful at any point, of course you want to come out of it. The reason that I'm keeping my arms and hands in this position is because I'm using my elbows to gently encourage my knees to follow the same direction as that second toe. If you're doing with your heels on the floor, you probably feel a significant stretch maybe through your Achilles too. And then taking those hands to the floor, Slowly lengthening those legs, paralleling those feet. Inhaling, lengthening that spine. Exhaling into the fold. Inhale, sweep those arms up. Exhale those arms down. And then coming down to your mat. So on this next one, we're going to do a broken wing pose. We're going to open up the chest and the shoulder. The angle of the camera is going to prevent me from showing you both sides fully. So there's not going to be much movement on my right side to get into the position for this first one that we're going to do. So all we're going to do with the right arm is, once we are prone on the mat, is take the right arm out to the side so that the wrist is level with the shoulder and the palm is going to be facing the floor. And everything else you should be able to see. So again, coming down here and taking that right arm and extending it straight out from the shoulder, as I just demonstrated when I was in a seated position. So you don't want your wrist high above the shoulder, you don't want it well below the shoulder. You pretty much want your wrist at shoulder height or just ever so slightly below. The palm is flat to the floor. Now you're going to reach your right fingers as far away from your torso as you can. And then once you've done that, you're going to bend your left arm and you're going to gently start to roll over to the side. Now, you may find that when you roll just a little bit, it's quite enough stretch through that front body. Or you may find that you can almost come into a sideline position. Now, those legs, you can choose a variety of options. I'm going to put them in a butterfly-ish position here. And then you can decide what you want to do with that hand. Some people keep it here, sort of as a kickstand for support, and some people will place it somewhere on their side body. The other thing is some people are very comfortable dropping their head down to the mat, and other people feel much better aligned if they put a pillow or a folded blanket under their head. So it's entirely up to you. So as you're here, you want to keep creeping that right hand away from your torso. Again, never to the point where you feel any pain in your chest or shoulder. But you do want to feel a fairly significant opening. Many people report that when doing this pose, they get an enjoyable stretch even down through the bicep of that right arm. Which sometimes it's difficult to get a fairly significant stretch through that bicep, but in this pose, you should be able to find one. And then to transition out of the pose, allow the upper leg to drop down toward the lower leg. Lengthen those legs. Roll back into a prone position. And we can go right into the other side. Now I'm going to switch around on my mat, but of course you don't need to. What you're going to do is you're going to extend that left arm straight out from the shoulder, palm facing down. And then use that opposite arm as a kickstand to guide you into more of a side-lying position. And then if it's comfortable for you, coming into a butterfly-ish position with those legs. And then you can rest your head on your mat or on a small pillow or folded blanket. Of course, while you're here, you can decide to more actively press that front arm into the floor. To help you find a little bit more opening through that left side. Or maybe you ease up a little, walk that hand out, and maybe come into a side-lying-ish position where you're somewhat on your side, but not completely stacked. And then once again, allowing those legs to come closer to each other into that midline. Extending those legs, rolling over And then bringing both hands by your side ribs and coming up into a Sphinx pose. So your thighs should be parallel to each other. Your big toes should be pointing straight back. Your elbows should be just under your shoulders or slightly ahead of it. You want to think about pressing those shoulder blades forward toward the front body. Of course, you can opt to stay here, or at any point, you can come up into what in yin they usually call a seal pose, generally called cobra in general. If you feel like you're compressing your spine in this pose, then you definitely want to go back down. And you can see that my hands are fairly far ahead of my shoulders. The more advanced options include walking those hands in. But again, if you feel like you have to really grip your gluteals, or that your low back is just not comfortable because it feels like it's being squished, then you want to walk those hands out, or maybe even return back to that Sphinx position. If you decide to come up, those arms stay nice and long. And then slowly dropping it down, either staggering or stacking your arms, depending on what seems to be better for you. And then allowing your forehead to rest on your forearms. So obviously you want your arms high enough that you feel like that there's space between your face and the mat. And then taking those hands by your side ribs, using those arms to help lift your torso up. And then maybe grabbing hold of those blocks and a blanket. So coming into an all fours position. Now from here, you may want to use your blocks as stilts. Stepping your right foot forward. You want your front ankle under your front knee. Now from here, just spinning around so you can see what I'm doing. You want to take both hands to the inside of that leg. As you do this, you want to allow your hips to drop down and back. Now, although your knee stays in line with your ankle and doesn't come close to your toes, you can let it fall out to the side if that feels natural to you. Now from here, you could drop your forearms down to the floor, or maybe to your blocks, or you could stay lifted where I just was. So entirely up to you. So you can see that in my case, my knee does fall out to the side. My foot is still pretty grounded. It's okay to do this here because we're not really fully weight bearing on that front leg. So you shouldn't be putting your knee in a precarious position. It should be fine. So some people will feel a stretch through the front hip on the side of their back leg. Some people will feel a stretch through the outer hip and the front leg. And then slowly coming up. Stepping that leg back. And then switching to the opposite side. So since you saw how the front view looks, we'll go with the side view this time. And stepping that leg forward. Placing that knee initially, at least, over that ankle. Both hands come to the inside of that foot. And then lowering your hips, lowering your arms, coming into that stretch. And then slowly coming up out of this side. Taking that leg back, maybe shaking up those hips. And we'll come into one more hip stretch before we go into a pose for final relaxation. We'll go into pigeon. So this is another one. I think I'll try a front view and a side view. So we'll start off taking that right leg forward. So if you're in an all fours position, you want to take that right knee up right behind the wrist. Now this is where I think that this view will come in handy, is that you want your shin to, at a minimum, be at a diagonal. Now, some people who are flexible in their hips will be able to take this leg and move it forward so that the shin is actually parallel to what would be the short end of my mat if I was on it properly. Now, you want to curl your back toe under, lift your back knee, and then swing those hips down as much as you can. Now, from here, you want to take a folded blanket and you want to place it underneath your hip for support. And this is hopefully another place where this angle will come in handy. You can come down onto your forearms, you can use a bolster, you can reach those arms forward for a sleeping pigeon pose. But you want your hips to be perfectly level. So hopefully you can see that you could take, the joke is that you could take like a tray of drinks and you could put them on, or you should be able to put them on someone's sacrum here, and they shouldn't spill. What you do not want to do is allow your hips to tilt. It's very tempting to drop, in this case, the right hip down and allow the left hip to lift up high. But then you basically eliminate many of the benefits of this pose. It is a very significant hip stretch. Now, of course, if you have existing knee issues, you can come into a seated pigeon or an upside down pigeon. And that will be a little gentler on your knees. You don't have to go into a reclined pigeon either. You can most certainly come up into more of a traditional pigeon. You continue to walk those shoulders back, those fingers back. It's a fairly significant back bend. So because we didn't do, we did Sphinx and Seal, you may feel equipped to do this, or you may feel better off in that sleeping pigeon. One of the benefits of sleeping pigeon too is that you get that nice lengthening of the spine. It's one of the unique poses for enabling that much lengthening. And then walking those hands up so that your wrists are under your shoulders. Now from here, you can come back into an all fours position, or you can shift to your right side, swing that leg around, and then transition to the other side. So try the side view this time. So taking that left knee up toward that left wrist and that left shin, and that's what you can't really see from this angle, but you saw it on the first side, is at a minimum at a diagonal. It may go closer to parallel to the floor. And then you want to curl the toes under. I want to shake those hips down to where they go. And if you're not able to keep your hips level and rest your lower hip on the floor, you want to put a blanket under it to keep that evenness. Now again, from here, you can come into a more traditional pigeon pose, or you can choose to come into some variation, resting on your forearms, placing a pillow under your torso for support, or reaching your arms forward and resting your forehead on your mat. Another option, sometimes I enjoy taking a block or something that you're using as a substitute for a block and resting my third eye on the block, trying to awaken that third eye chakra. So a nice long body stretch from the crown of your head all the way down to the tip of your toes. And then walking those wrists up under those shoulders. And again, you can slide the front leg back, or you can swing the back leg around into a seated position. So we've been going almost an hour. So we will come into some pose for final relaxation. You can do a traditional final relaxation, or you can maybe choose to do a pose that you really wish we had done tonight, but we hadn't. You may opt to place something under your knees or your feet. You may opt to place something on top of your hips or thighs. Allow those palms to turn upward. So that while it's not the deepest opening that you're going to experience, you do experience an opening across your front body. You want to try to relax completely. So exhaling away any tension or tightness, if any remains. Thinking about those larger parts of your body, those thigh muscles. And those smaller parts of your body, even your wrists, your fingers, your toes, your ankles, your jaw. And then beginning to wiggle your fingers and your toes, bending your legs, grounding your feet. Rolling to your side, and when you feel ready, lifting up to a seated position. Trying to find that long spine and those grounded sitting bones. And moving into a couple of seated cat and cows. exhale down. The light within me salutes the light within you. Namaste. Thank you for joining me tonight. We would appreciate it if you would comment and share with anyone who might enjoy this. We hope that you're enjoying this, and we hope to see you soon. Take care.